So we're going to go through this little BBC video of Hamilton to Ferrari. So I'll play you it through first so you can watch it in full and then I'll break it down. Here we go.
Hamilton is 39 years old. Is this possibly an attempt to get that elusive eighth world title before it's too late?
Well, since he lost that eighth title in Abu Dhabi in 2021 in very controversial circumstances, he's been driven by the desire to right what he perceives to be an injustice. Obviously, Red Bull and Max Verstappen don't consider it the same way. But for Hamilton, he feels he was robbed of that title and he very much wants that eighth title before he retires. It's interesting then that he seems to believe that Ferrari is the place to get that because, okay, Mercedes have been struggling for competitiveness in the last couple of years against the Red Bull onslaught since new rules were introduced a couple of years ago. But Ferrari have also been struggling. And actually, Mercedes beat Ferrari narrowly to second place overall last year. But Hamilton seems to have been convinced by Ferrari, and he's worked with the team principal there, Frederic Vasseur, before when he was coming up through the ranks, that they're the place that's going to guarantee him more success. So, the move will be questioned, but then his move to Mercedes from McLaren back in 2013 was also questioned, and that turned out to be an inspired move.
Thank you for that, Andrew. So what we're now going to do, so this video came from this article here. So you can go on the BBC Sport website, you can have a read of it. Lewis Hamilton, Toto Wolff surprised by Ferrari decision but holds no grudge. And as you scroll down there, you get to this video, Hamilton to Ferrari, and you can have a read. But this is once again the BBC's Andrew Benson, who is their chief Formula One writer, paid handsomely. The BBC being funded by the British licence fee payer. So this guy shouldn't be being paid by the sport to present an agenda. This guy should be a person capable of talking about the sport with authenticity without having to protect the agenda of those who operate the sport. Okay, but that is not what he does. Benson just protects the agenda of those who operate the sport. But I'm going to go through this video again and we will break down a few of the things that Benson has to say.
Hamilton is 39 years old. Is this possible?
So straight away, Hamilton is 39 years old. Who was saying anything about Alonso when over the past couple of seasons Alonso is now being spoken about as if he is also a title contender still? One of the all-time greats, they reckon. He's only got 2 world championships compared to Hamilton's 7, but he seems to be lauded as this all-time great and still a front runner in F1. Yet, we seem to be, Hamilton's younger than Alonso, yet we seem to be writing him off, going, oh, well, he's 39 now. Okay, the guy's not showing any sign of decline. What's impacted his chances over the past couple of years is he's in a machine that's inferior. And that's always going to impact your chances in this kind of sport. One of the reasons that machine is inferior is because Mercedes got it wrong in 2022. But the other thing was Red Bull cheated by spending more money in the development of that 2022 machine, and year on year have built upon that. So they've got this unfair advantage. Let's see if Benson even touches upon that. Well, no, he doesn't. We know he doesn't because we've just heard it. But let's carry on.
Probably an attempt to get that elusive eighth world title before it's too late.
Well, since he lost
that elusive 8th world title before it's too late. So again, trying to write his career off already. And this notion of elusive 8th. Why are we having this debate about an 8th world championship if it's still not a problem? In any authentic sport, you've got the greats. Think of the greats of tennis when you've got Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, setting records for Grand Slam victories and titles. And somebody comes along and eclipses it. So firstly, Federer set new records. Then Nadal overtook that. Now now Djokovic has overtaken that. This is what can happen in sport. But when it's authentic, people aren't going on about an injustice over 2 years afterwards. Okay? That's the way it goes. It's only when something is corrupt that it's still there and they still have to acknowledge, oh, there's people are still talking about this. Why are people still talking about this? Is because we know it's corrupt. And we know that you have never exposed the truth of it. And we're going to keep going until the whole world understands the truth of this. But you're not going to tell us this in this interview, are you, Benson?
That eighth title in Abu Dhabi in 2021 in very controversial circumstances. He's been driven by the desire to right.
In very controversial circumstances. Circumstances, Benson, that you have never exposed to the world. Now, there are two things. We can put this down to incompetence, whereby it could be that you lack the ability to realise what was going on. It could be that you don't know enough about motorsport to understand that what happened was corrupt, and that what you have done is like what many people have done, is just listen to the likes of Martin Brundle, been convinced by his lies and just parroted that. You lack the ability to see through those lies and to actually understand that what he is saying isn't truthful. Oh, they don't have to let the lapped cars through, I don't think. I don't think it's mandatory. There's not any part of that in your head got you thinking, well, is that true or not? Can I think of another sport where it's not mandatory? The referee can just make a random decision as to what he thinks. He's not got to apply a set of rules when he makes a decision. He can just pick and choose what he wants to do. You didn't think about that and go, well, that's not right, is it? Oh, but if Martin Brundle said it, yeah, we'll all say the same as Martin, shall we? Let's all say the same as Martin. But Benson being paid 80 grand, 100 grand, 120 grand, wherever he's being paid by the BBC, that is being funded by the UK licence fee payer, Benson just happily just goes, yeah, it's just a bit controversial. But then he didn't. So is it ignorance, Benson? Is it ignorance? So therefore you're incompetent and therefore should not be the chief F1 writer for the sport? Or is it that you are just complicit and corrupt? Now, your ignorance, it could be ignorant. People might argue that. But I have sent letters to the BBC for your attention. I have tweeted you, Benson, on numerous occasions. I have forwarded you links to my videos which I've evidenced certain things. And you've never exposed anything, Benson. So actually, ignorance is not a defence because you do know the truth, but you won't reveal the truth. Instead, what you do, Benson, is you just say, yeah, it was just a bit controversial. So a crash happens in a Grand Prix, and every time what we witness, Benson, is if the race director chooses to deploy the safety car, then what happens is all of the field bunch up behind the safety car. So them cars are travelling around at slower speed around the circuit, making it a safer environment. Marshals are then on the track, clearing up the situation, removing the car away from the track, clearing up any debris, and making sure those barriers are okay to make that track safe again. Once that track is declared as being safe, then what happens is the race director then enacts the mandatory procedure before they go racing again, and that consists of releasing the lapped cars, giving them at least a further lap of the safety car with which to allow those lapped cars the chance of recatching the back of the pack, to establish the correct race order and all of the kart competitors, ideally nose to tail, so that all of the previously built up advantages are nullified and then we can start racing again. Once that safety incident has neutralized racing, it basically resets that race to the start conditions that we had right at the beginning of the race. In effect, that's what happens. This incident has affected the race, therefore it nullifies all that's gone on before this, and we've got to effectively start the race from scratch again. That is what the regulations of the safety car are written there to achieve. This sport, this show, doesn't tell you it like that. They don't make it quite simple like that. Instead, they want to say, oh, what's going to happen now? How long will they wait? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? We don't know. Well, I've just told you why it is that they do that, because that's what sport is. But Benson here can't tell you that. Why can't you, the BBC's chief correspondent, chief writer for Formula One, tell us that simple scenario about Abu Dhabi, which you never have? You just said it's controversial. You parroted what Karun Chandok said and said, oh, there were still other sets of circumstances where Max Verstappen may still have won. But never told us what them circumstances could have been, Benson. But you've always give the validation, and you never expose the truth of the matter. You never have gone back through that and said, hey, look at the footage that was being showed to the world. That wasn't authentic. They never showed us the state of that clear-up operation. Listen to these messages that F1 TV have chosen to broadcast to the world. Well, they're not in accordance with the rules of the sport. Listen to Martin Brundle and David Croft with what they're saying. That's not authentic. That's not in accordance with the rules of the sport. Michael Massey here in Race Control, he's supported by at least 9 other people in FIA Race Control. So there's all of them in that room know what the rules of the sport are and why they are what they are. Oh, let's just blame the one guy and pin it on the one guy. And once we've got rid of him, it's all great again now. We can all move on and everything's all good. And then they've got the Stewards' Appeal, which was the most corrupt thing that Benson's never revealed. And then we've got the FIA doing their review of the situation, and Benson's never revealed how corrupt that is. Who are you protecting, Benson? The F1 chief journalist of the BBC that's incapable of authentic journalism. This is the guy that you're looking at now. Andrew Benson, chief F1 writer, being paid handsomely to lie to you. The BBC lying to you.
What he perceives to be an injustice. Obviously, Red Bull and
Oh, Hamilton perceives it to be an injustice. I've just explained what an injustice was. It is systematic corruption perpetrated by the entire show. From the top down, all teams complicit within that. Ferrari disadvantaged by not being able to challenge for a top 2 position in a race. Do you not think that they should be protesting that their competitor in 3rd place was held back from not being able to challenge the 2nd place competitor in that race? Could he, when Max Verstappen ran Lewis Hamilton wide at turn 5, if he'd have been on Max's tail, he'd have got through and overtaken them both on the inside of that turn. He could have won that race. What about Ferrari? Why didn't they complain? Systematic corruption. McLaren, Lando Norris, left 2/3 of a lap behind Gasly. Why didn't McLaren protest? The entire show is corrupt. And Benson, oh, don't say anything, Benson. You just convince the masses, convince the fools that it's all okay. It was just a bit controversial. And Lewis here, Lewis is the one that, he perceives it was an injustice, but Red Bull and Max Verstappen, they won't perceive it's an injustice.
obviously Red Bull and Max Verstappen don't consider it the same way.
Well,
But for Hamilton, he
here we
feels
go.
like what he perceives to be an injustice. Obviously, Red Bull and Max Verstappen don't consider it the same way. But for Hamilton, he feels he was robbed of that title, and he very much wants that eighth title.
Hamilton feels he was robbed of that title. Well, no, he categorically was. He categorically was robbed of the title. Why are you not able to state that, Benson? Why are you not able to break it down, all of these elements that led to him being robbed in that corrupt manner? And this show continues to operate despite the criminality that it's perpetrated. This is your journalism, Benson. This is the best that you can do. You're a truly disgusting individual.
Before he retires. It's interesting then that he seems to believe that Ferrari is the place to get that because, okay, Mercedes have been struggling for competitiveness in the last couple of years against the Red Bull onslaught since new rules were introduced a couple of years ago. But Ferrari have all.
And leaves it hanging there. It's interesting that Mercedes have struggled in the last few years since the Red Bull onslaught, since the new regulations were introduced. Okay, so you leave it there, don't you, Andrew? You make no mention whatsoever that in 2021 there was a cost cap introduced into the sport, and in 2021 that meant that the money being spent in 2021 was partially being used on running the 2021 car and partially being used in developing the 2022 car. Red Bull are the only team that overspent, which meant they had extra money, and that can be spent in developing the 2022 car, which means they have gained a performance advantage. That's like an athlete taking drugs to give it a performance advantage. And Red Bull did that by spending money that they shouldn't have spent, which could have easily gone in the development of their 2022 car. It doesn't matter whether they say, oh, well, no, we didn't spend it on that. We just spent it on the buffet. Irrelevant. These are the rules. You've overspent. You can tell us. You can try and convince us what you will try to claim you spent it on. I don't believe you, because you're liars. You've cheated. You don't get to negotiate now that you've cheated and claim, oh, yeah, we just spent it on a few vol-au-vents. That was nothing. That didn't make our car go any faster. No, you've cheated. No. Oh, yeah, I didn't. The drugs that I took didn't make me any faster. No. They were just because I got a headache, so I took a few steroids and it just cleared my headache up. So that you shouldn't strip away my gold medal. Rightio, Benson. Thanks for that. So you don't explain to the world that actually Red Bull have got this illegally gotten advantage. No. We never say anything bad against Red Bull, do we? Why is that, Benson?
Also been struggling. And actually, Mercedes beat Ferrari narrowly to second place overall last year. But Hamilton seems to have been convinced by Ferrari, and he's worked with the team principal there, Frederic Vasseur, before when he was coming up through the ranks, that they're the place that's going to guarantee him more success. So, the move will be questioned, but then his move to Mercedes from McLaren back in 2013 was also questioned, and that
they're the team that will guarantee him more success. Now, think about empirical evidence. What is the evidence that will guarantee you more success? Well, nothing's guaranteed. What's strange at the moment is that we are just about to start the 2024 season. What happens if, by some sort of miracle, Mercedes during the off season have developed their 2024 car and it becomes an all-conquering car capable of beating the Red Bull? Wouldn't it seem like a foolish decision to jump ship? It seems rather strange that before the performance of the 2024 Merc is known, Hamilton, or even before the performance of the 2024 Ferrari is known, Hamilton is making this choice. Do you not want to delve into it a bit deeper than the depths that you've kind of dived into this, Benson? We've got 2025 will be the season that Hamilton starts driving for Ferrari. We don't know what 2024 is looking like. 2025 will be the last season where they're using this generation of cars. And 2026 is the new regulations, where it's a new set of technical regulations that all teams are building a different version of car too. So is Hamilton not convinced that the 2026 Merc is going to be any good? Does he know that the direction that the Merc has gone for 2024 is wrong, and therefore he's getting himself out straight away as soon as he can? This is you, the chief. You're exploring these as being reasons as to why Hamilton might have made this decision. He's going to a team whereby Jean Todt was formerly a team principal there, who was then moved into the FIA and was the head of the FIA at the time of the Abu Dhabi fix. Ferrari have always had this special sort of treatment from the FIA. Are you exploring these links, Benson? What is highly questionable, highly suspicious? This is the BBC's chief journalist.
Turned out to be an inspired move.
Thanks for that, Andrew Benson. Thanks for that. So, at some point in time, we will hope to reveal to a greater audience the standard of the journalists that BBC employ to condition the minds, because they're not telling the truth. They're not exposing the reality of the situation to people, and the depth with which they actually go into these things and bring up the different factors that could be impacting what's actually going on. You get that minute 14-second bit of fluff from the BBC's chief. Anyway, that'll do on that one. One more to come today. Look forward to it, because it's going to expose a little bit more